Yep, hi everyone. In this video I'm just going to quickly demonstrate the performance of this tablet. This is not going to be about the usability of applications, just how they run. I'm going to have a second video about the usability and go into the scaling options that are available in Windows 8. Now, for those who haven't seen my other videos, this is an Asus VivoTab ME400C Windows 8 tablet. It has a dual-core Atom 1.8 GHz CPU, and this is positioned in between the Windows RT style tablets, which have lightweight iPad-style CPUs, and the full-blown Intel Core i3, i5, and i7 tablets, which have big, hot, fast Intel Core CPUs. This is in between the two. The idea is that you get a thin and light iPad-sized tablet without fans and long battery life, but you still get the desktop experience, the full desktop where you can run all your Windows applications. So for some people, including me, this is the ideal compromise for a Windows 8 tablet. Now the question is, can you use big apps on it? I've used a notebook a Dell netbook in the past with a single core Atom, the original Atom, and if you're like me from the old days and have used computers when they were slow, and you don't always expect Word to open in a second or less, you're probably quite happy with apps that take a little while to open and are a bit sluggish to use. I can work with apps like that in an emergency, and that's what I was prepared to do here. Now, apps like the Office apps, this is Office 365, which is the same as Office 2013. This works fine. Load a template up in Word. Yep, let's load that. It's downloading it, and away it goes. I mean, look, it's all so fast. I don't know what else you need. It's very fast. Load a blank template. There we go. That's fast. PowerPoint. I haven't launched that yet. Let's see how that goes. PowerPoint isn't your default programming. You want to select the file types that it should open. Sure, why not? PPS. Why is PPT and PPTX not selected? I wonder what other application decided it wanted those. So I'll go and select those. Okay. I'm sure this works very well. Create. Da-da-da-da-da. All very fast and nice. Very cool. Easy to use, excellent, and fast. Okay, don't save that. And of course, one note that I've gone into extensively in other videos, other included apps like Internet Explorer and so on are obviously very fast in this. So I want to just quickly touch upon a few other applications, some things that are more heavyweight. One that I use all the time, I've just downloaded some trial versions here. One that I use all the time on my desktop, and one that I actually have been intending to use on this tablet, not to create designs, but to work on designs with clients, just to show them things I might be working on and make minor changes when I'm out with them at their office or something like that. So I am interested in how this works. Okay, now it loads up reasonably well. And I have found that, so the performance is fine. It's good enough. It loads things up fine. I have found, and you can create a new tablet, the interface is quite small. This is a 1366 screen, and so this is a higher DPI than a typical desktop, so things are smaller. How that works on a 1920 by 1080 resolution Surface Pro sized tablet, I don't know, things are going to be very, very tiny on that sort of screen. Certainly on the 11-inch tablets I looked at with higher resolution screens, things were very, very tiny. This is as tiny as you'd want to go with the interface. Okay, now I'm finding that the capacitive stylus works for selecting and pointing like a mouse, but for other things it does not work like a mouse. For a lot of things, you're finding you're dragging around on scroll bars and so on, and it just does not work. I've sort of figured out that it's doing that because it doesn't work like a mouse. With a mouse, you're not expected in programs to swipe, and yet this swipes. You see, I can swipe this program, which is not a tablet program, but it lets me swipe. A bit slowly and clunky, but it lets me swipe it. Normally I'm supposed to, select the scroll bar and move it up and down. Well, it's having trouble selecting the scroll bar. You see, you can't do that. And I've had this trouble with a lot of programs. It's hard to select scroll bars. And it's obviously doing that because it's trying to figure out if I'm trying to swipe the screen and move content by swiping, or if I'm trying to do something else, and it errs in favor of swiping. And pinching. See, I can pinch in this program. See? Can't do that on the on the desktop. It's not meant to do that, this program, and yet it works, because obviously the operating system is letting me do it. So that's a problem with using a capacitive stylus like this. I don't know how that is with an active digitizer stylus, which basically gives you a mouse pointer. It may or may not have the same issue. I don't know. I think those screens can work in capacitive and pen mode, so they can switch between them, in which case it would work properly in pen mode. So this program, I can select tools fine, but then I can't draw something. If I'm careful pressing on down, I can draw something. If I click around enough, there we go. Eventually I can draw something. And look, I've managed to drag it this time. That's hard to do. Yeah, see, now when I've dragged the edges, the corners, it just won't let me do it. Oh, there I did. I dragged it. Sometimes I can grab the thing. There we go. I've got it now. But other times, it drags the whole screen, you see. Doesn't seem to be any way to control that. So, performance-wise, it would be fine for me, but usability, I can't use it with a stylus. Not with this stylus anyhow. Let me close that application. Another one of interest to people. Oh no, not that. Is that going to launch? No. Let me go to the desktop. Someone asked about Photoshop, so I went to the trouble of downloading the Photoshop CS6 Trial, which is quite large and took an age to do. But here it is. You can see how fast it loads. That's fast enough. Photoshop's a pig, always, and that loaded up perfectly well. Continue my trial, and let's go find a picture. Oh, let's put some fishies in there. There we go. So for pointing and dragging and selecting, that works. But now, can I move the... Oh, I don't need to scroll that, so let me zoom in a bit. Oh, how do I do that? Okay, that worked. I can get the bottom scroll bar and move that way. Oops. But I can't get the side scroll bar. Oops. No. Oh, go away. Okay, this is turning into a mess already. Close that. Let me launch that again. I can already see it's the same issue as with Xara, the other program I was using. It works, it loads up okay. It would be fast enough to do some work on. Give me the workspace. Default. Come on, go away. Continue trial. There. buttons are very small here. The toolbar, it's difficult to select tools. I can get around there. I can get the little menus to come up. Oh, that worked this time. It doesn't always let me choose an item off the menu. So same problems. Doesn't really work. Let me go to File, Recent, the fish. Here, for example, let me try the color picker. Let me try the magic wand. I should be able to select this orange here. No, I just can't select it. If I turn around and use a mouse, I've got a nasty cheap Bluetooth mouse here, which installed very quickly and easily. And there's the pointer. Okay. Obviously that works exactly how it's supposed to, so that's great. So the tools work. Let me, yeah, I can do things in here. Open the history, go back to open, oops. I need to hit escape. How can I hit escape without a keyboard? I can't. So I'll go there, click there, escape, escape, escape. There we go. Then go to the open, try a filter, filter gallery. And let's try oh, there's some awful filters in here, aren't there? Artistic, paint daubs, palette knife. Let's try palette knife. I'm just sort of seeing how fast this works. It's pretty slow. I mean, you wouldn't be using this to batch render images with effects applied to them, obviously. But okay, yes, that is working. Just needs to be something much more obvious there. I'll put plastic wrap on it. There we go. So you can see the plastic wrap being applied. That looks weird, very weird. And I'll just go OK, and there we go, that's applied. Bit slow, but works. Does not work with a capacitive stylus. Save changes, no. Go away. Yep. I'm assuming that there's an app here in Windows that I can use for editing. Photoshop, Fingershare, Paint, Photos, Windows Photo Viewer. I don't think Photos or anything lets you do any editing, but doesn't matter. So the other apps I have here of interest. Someone asked about World of Warcraft and Sims, neither of which I have. I did dig out an old copy of AOE, Age of Empires 2, Age of Kings, and tried it out. This is made for an old VGA screen size, which is why it's that size. But you can set it to go for a 1024 by something, so I did that. Let's pick a random map, start the game. Okay, that was the game, not me. And there we go, that loads up. Now this program is made to work with a mouse, and you're supposed to, with a mouse, you move to the edge of the screen to scroll around. So that works fine. You can actually play this like this and then do all your stuff. So performance-wise, no problem. However, again, with the stylus or with your finger, if it's a proper modern game, you'd be able to swipe around the place, but it doesn't detect that. It doesn't detect that. It basically just puts us on the selection on the screen, and that's what we use. So all you can do is move to the edge of the screen and then move around like that. or you can move around the mini-map with the stylus as well, with your finger. That works. And you can of course select people, and if you hold and right click you can get them to do things. So that, again, same situation. The game runs, the program runs. It would be playable or usable if the controls worked. With the capacitive stylus, they don't work. With a keyboard and a mouse, it would work. So let's get out of there. Quit the game. Okay, now I'll show you an application that is a real heavyweight. This here is Propellerhead Reason. It's a music production application, and I'll just open one of the demo tracks. And this was made back when computers basically had 800 pixel wide interfaces, laptops and things, and which was pretty small, and that's why that is that size. It's very small. It's an 800 pixel wide thing. And I used this, and I used a previous program called Rebirth on my old Windows XP tablet PC from 2003, which is also on my channel. This program, Rebirth, ran on that, and it fit the screen perfectly, and that tablet had an active digitizer pen, and it worked extremely well. I could use the pen to point at the buttons here, and with a mouse, you see, you point at the buttons and you move the mouse up and down, and it spins the knobs. Okay, that's the spinny ones. The other ones, of course, just go up and down as you drag and slide them, the sliders. Now I'll just maximize that, detach the sequencer, go back to here. This is a big preset. It has a whole lot of synthesizers running. This is all software synthesis. The whole thing is just software generating the sounds, applying the effects, doing the reverberation and chorusing, everything on the fly. That's very good and very heavy on the CPU potentially. Depends what you do. If you keep adding effects, the more it uses, the more you add. There's a sequencer on this side where you can do all your note editing. Here's your... So again, the stylus works for pointing, and you can add notes. If I go into draw mode, I should be able to add notes. Yep, there we go. So that works. Can I undo? I'll just erase those. Yeah, that works. I can erase those. So it looks like it's going to work, and if we play it, it's not very bassy, of course. It's just coming out the tinny little speaker on the side here. But that works. That's playing through that particular piece. Change back to the overview of all the tracks. There they all are, playing away. Quite a few tracks. I'm going to go to the main window here, and I'll just open the synths that are being used. They're all collapsed here. Just going to show you what's actually running here. The Reason does complain now and then that the computer is not fast enough to run something, but obviously if you're using this to make music on a tablet like this, you would just scale things down to suit while you're working on it. Then you can always render it on your other computer if necessary. So of interest here is that, first off, that this is only that wide, 800 pixels wide, so everything's very tiny. You can tap above or below these sliders to make them jump up and down, and if you're very lucky, there, I've just done it, you can select a slider and move it up and down. But typically that's what happens. It interprets your selection as a swipe, a finger swipe. So again, it's the same problem that I have in all the other windows, where, look, you can swipe up and down. You can't do that with the keyboard and mouse. But at the same time, it's supposed to stay still, and you're supposed to be able to move the sliders up and down, which doesn't work, and the knobs and things, you just can't do it. If you're very lucky, and I've just been lucky again, you can select a knob and move it up and down, but it's just not good enough. It really doesn't work. Okay, so it would be amazing though. Just imagine this: you could be sitting in the bus. Flip this the other way. Got your music playing in your headphones. Maximize it. And you've got this massive rack full of equipment here. That you could operate. Now, if you had an active digitizer, then potentially this would work. You could actually sit here, stop that, run the jump sequencer. Let's add some notes there. Yep, messed that one up. Okay, that's going to mess that one up. Undo that. Anyhow, start the track. Wouldn't that be amazing to be able to write your stuff and do your music like this? This is going to have to wait until I get an active digitizer, a tablet with an active digitizer. Potentially it could work. It's very, very tiny, so even with an active, some of the stuff is really, really hard to read because it's so small. Yeah, it's okay though. You can still make it out. Very tiny though. I mean, I can hardly make out the patch names. Tom. That's a Tom hi-hat, Tom rim shot. Tom rim? No, don't know what that is. But it could be used. Nothing else is very impressive, and it works. It actually plays, which is neat. However, I'll close that because ultimately it's a fail. It's a fail of the swiping, the finger touch, and the capacitive pen. Doesn't work. Doesn't work for applications like that. Now, the last thing, let's just have a look at Windows Explorer, right? Here on the left, we've got, I don't know, 20 or so folders. Things are pretty small. Here's a USB key connector right there. Things are pretty tiny. My Pictures, I can see the My Pictures folder down there. The words My Pictures fit inside here. That's how big My Pictures is. Fits inside there. So what I'm going to do is change the scaling of the desktop. Okay, now here we have a website. It's just for testing. Now note I've got an inch there and an inch there on the either side of the screen. This middle bit here is 960 pixels plus the shadow. This is made to fit inside a typical iPad size display. That's a standard size for a website these days. On a screen like this, there's all this extra space, and you may have already noticed when you're browsing websites on a Windows tablet, there's always often that extra space. And so you end up zooming in like that, and you think it'd be nice if it were just like that. Well, on an iPad it's like that by default because the screen is meant, fits that size. With these Windows ones, you get that extra space. And so I'm going to scale the screen, and we're going to see what happens with this and those other applications. We're going to do it here from the Windows desktop. Make text and other items larger or smaller. Now on this screen here, I've already noticed it's different from my desktop machine, which gives me not just 100 and 125%, it also gives me large 150%. So that's missing here. It's only giving us this 125%. If you just choose that, and then it tells you some items not fit on the screen, blah blah blah, whatever, and apply it, makes you sign out. Then you sign back in. It's nice how quick Windows 8 is. And go back to the desktop. And now, all of a sudden, the icons are bigger. Everything up here is bigger. These icons are bigger. If I open Windows Explorer, everything's bigger. Now we see about 15 or so folders here on the tree. And everything's a bit bigger and a bit easier to select. Obviously, because it's at 125, my pictures is now bigger than the USB key. It's quite nice. That actually is similar size to my desktop computer. Your typical desktop screen, about that DPI. So that's quite nice, quite usable. All of a sudden, the whole thing doesn't feel cramped. But of course, you fit less on the screen. So if we open IE again, go back to that website. And we'll see what's happened now. Okay, now it fills the screen. So that actually looks like the site would look on an iPad, at least width-wise, not vertical-wise. And that's fine. That's great. Okay, so that has scaled up, and I can see it has scaled everything up. Those thumbnails look a bit suspicious, but no, it's generally scaled everything up. There isn't much on this anyway to go wrong. But I think it has scaled everything up. Let's close that. Now we'll just have a look at Reason. Okay. Now this, we'll notice, is still the same size that it was before. This is not scaled. The title bar, the menu items here, they've scaled up because those are standard Windows controls, but nothing else has scaled. Everything's the same size it was inside, so it's no better. It's actually no difference. And I mentioned this in my review that it doesn't actually scale everything equally and evenly. So it's not a lot of use when you're trying to use scaling to get out of troublesome apps like this and make them better to use. It doesn't work. Now, just as I thought that was basically still going to be a problem and Microsoft would have to solve that in some way, I found there is a setting for this. Because it's not zooming everything, it's just enlarging parts of Windows that Windows controls. It doesn't control what's inside the programs, but it controls all the Chrome and the menus and so on, and that sort of thing. So it enlarges those, but leaves the rest. However, if we go to back to that screen, and just below there that says Custom Sizing Options. It's hard to read here, but that's what it says, Custom Sizing Options. If I go there, I noticed it had written, there's a checkbox here that says Use Windows XP Style Scaling, and it's checked. Well, that's, of course, probably going to match my old Windows XP tablet PC, how it was in the past, and that was like this in the past if you scaled things. It only scaled some things. So now what I'm going to do is disable that, go OK, apply, go through this process again, which thankfully is so nice and fast. Oops, I may have buggered that up. Nope. So now, let's go back here. Let's launch Reason again. So everything looks the same. Okay, now it's bigger. It was that size. Now it's 1.5 inches bigger, wider, which is pretty handy. I will maximize that. Go to the window, detach the sequencer window. So now things are bigger. Not everything again. So some things like there, still small. And it is trying to scale things, and I can see that a lot of these controls, the little buttons and things that are made of graphics, are now all messed up because they're enlarged, but they're not well enlarged. They're sort of missing their anti-aliasing, or they sort of got just weak anti-aliasing on it. So the menus look terrible. They're fuzzy, out of focus, badly resized. So it sort of helps, but not really. It enlarged everything, but it's not doing a good job of it. Let's go to the other window. This, it's all bigger, much bigger, but it's fuzzy looking now, as if it had been enlarged, which it has. And the only way this is ever going to work is if the people, Propellerhead for example, go and rewrite this program and give it high-res graphics, high-res scalable graphics. That'll fix this. Until then, it's not going to be fixed. Still have this problem with the stylus, of course, so it doesn't really work. Plays fine though. Yep, nothing wrong with that. The same situation applies to Photoshop and Xara and all the other applications. Actually, let me just see what Word looks like. This probably works fine, because it's probably, yes, this all is perfect. So if everyone made an application like Microsoft, things would probably be perfect. Yes, so this scales beautifully. Right, I'm going to reset that back to what it was, because it's not a solution either. It's a solution for some programs, but not for the ones that need it, which are those ones with the funny interfaces. So the net result of all of this is what? I think speed-wise, performance-wise, this is good enough. It's good enough for me, put it that way. A dual-core Atom, people complain about the Atom all the time. I've never had complaints about the Atom. I always thought it was a perfectly good CPU. As someone who's used computers, my first computer was a 25 megahertz 486, my first PC, and my first computer was a 3.5 megahertz Z80. So I've had a lot of PCs and a lot of operating systems and a lot of applications, and this performs perfectly well. That's good enough. Performance-wise, it's good enough. Usability-wise, this works. Swiping, the Metro interface thing, modern UI works very well. Love that. With the stylus, that works as well. The desktop Office works very well. Other applications, variable. I guess the situation is performance might be fine, but the interface may or may not be usable with a pen or with your fingers. That's always going to be a problem. You're going to have to revert to using a mouse or a keyboard with a little touchpad. That would be fine too. And then you're turning it into a netbook. Okay, well, I guess, you know, that's what the desktop is. It's meant to be used with a mouse and a keyboard, and it's, you know, it can sort of do both. Now, I've got this crummy old Bluetooth keyboard. I never liked it because it has this lag when you turn it on. You have to keep shaking it to make sure it's active. I might get one of those modern, those little tiny Microsoft Bluetooth mice that they put out, the little wedge-shaped thing. I'll try that out and see if it's any good. If that works, I might just get one of those and keep it handy. Alternatively, I may consider later in the year, I'll probably upgrade this to a tablet that has an active digitizer. See how I feel. I may or may not. I might be just getting too keen on using this for everything that I shouldn't really be using it for. I'm not going to use Reason on this. I'm not going to run Photoshop. I just want to show some pictures with Xara, but I do want to run Office, and it does that very well with touch. No problem there. Okay, I'll wrap this up because that's going on and on forever once again. Thanks for watching, and I hope that helps some of you make up your minds about what you want to buy and what you want to do with your next purchase. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.